I know we were expecting some new developments this weekend, but some of them have failed quality control. Make sure you indicate what you'd like redeveloped via the workstation.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 2018 career mode here today for episode number 32 at the German Grand Prix in Season 2, and we start things off with a bit of bad news. We've got a failure on the ultimate tyre wear upgrade, so I'm pretty sure actually one or two of you call this in the episode where we purchased the ultimate upgrade, but as has now been the case, I think twice now, the ultimate upgrade on the chassis has failed us, so we're going to have to wait one more week then to have that ultimate upgrade come in, but we do have the fuel consumption upgrade coming in this race. It might not help us though, because I think there might be some rain forecasts, so we might not exactly be burning too much rich mix during the race or qualifying. We'll have to see when the rain really falls, but you can see here at the moment we don't even have enough R&D points to even repurchase the upgrade yet until the end of the episode. But going into the R&D chart then to have a look at what's going on, obviously we improve a little bit due to the minor fuel consumption update, but you can see there Mercedes now for the first time this season actually have a tiny upgrade to get ahead of McLaren and Force India, who are getting very, very close and familiar with one another on that chart. Renault also upgraded along with Sauber and Toro Rosso. Toro Rosso really look to close the gap to Williams. They're equal now at the bottom of the chart there, but at the moment for us, we're looking pretty good, you know, just a tiny bit behind Red Bull. Let's see if that will be enough for them today, but feeling confident after what was a decent enough episode last time out. Obviously, like I said, wasn't ideal and wasn't truly happy with how Silverstone went, but all in all, couldn't complain about the result, all things considered there. If you did miss that episode, by the way, be sure to check that one out before you see the rest of this episode. But let's get into qualifying then for the German Grand Prix.
Welcome to Germany for today's qualifying session at the famous HOCKENHEIM ring. The pit lane lights will turn green in the next minute or two to signify the start of qualifying. This is a track that tends to ask quite a lot of the tyres, both front and rear. So is it fair to say a great deal of management will be needed in order to do well here?
Tyre wear is always something you have to consider to a certain degree. Finding a good car balance that suits the circuit will help prolong the life of the tyre, but it's true that some circuits, such as this one, are more challenging than others. How hard you can push them depends on your strategy and how tight the battle is around you.
So very overcast here in Q1, so maybe a threat of rain, but I don't think we should have any this entire Saturday. It might just be very cold conditions as we start off, but it looks like the rain's going to be coming for the race on Sunday, so we'll have to see how that goes. But we start our first flying lap then around Hockenheim. Wasn't a great one. You can see Magnussen up in P7. We're down in a lowly P15 or 16, I think that is. Hamilton actually, interestingly enough, behind me as well, so none of us setting a good time on that first run, so we go for a second time round. So I think it's the second time it's happened in about 3 episodes. I think the last time we did it was the Austrian Grand Prix, where we didn't set a good enough time the first showing in Q1. So it's been a bit of a pattern, to be honest, a bit of a worrying pattern now. I just don't seem to be getting in the groove of the car straight away lately in Season 2 here in Q1. I need to have a second flyer to really find the pace, find the limits of the track here as we go through now across the line. That will eventually get us through into Q2 in P11 only. So a little bit low as Magnussen sets the top time with Fernando. Alonso looking pretty good in second place there. Ricciardo below us though with Vettel as well. Both of those guys opting for the soft tyres along with Verstappen. But look at that, Raikkonen and Hamilton, two big players in the Ferrari and Mercedes, knocked out in Q1. They were too overconfident with going on soft tyres. Remember, obviously, soft tyres, the middle compounder tyre here, and that is 2 steps down from ultra soft tyres. So I think they just gambled it way too much, and so Hamilton, Raikkonen out of qualifying. So that's going to be a bit of a tough order for them in the race then, to see if they can make up positions, especially if it's raining. But we move on into Q2. You can see the sun is out then, so hopefully maybe heats up the track a little bit more and our car can come alive. Obviously Magnussen already was alive in Q1 by setting the fast lap of the Grand Prix, or session I should say, in that first session. As we go across the line though, we go fastest then, and by the time we come through to the end of Q2, we are in second place, only to Max Verstappen, who goes fastest in that session. Magnussen very, very close there between myself and my teammate in Q2. So that perked up my hopes for what we can hopefully accomplish in Q3. But you can see Ricciardo, Vettel through with Perez also, and the 2 McLarens actually looking a lot better here at Germany. So to say they've been nerfed obviously and they've taken a step back at Silverstone, they're looking a bit stronger here around Hockenheim. So we move on then into our Q3 lap. Magnussen at the moment setting another pole position or provisional pole, but I think the Red Bulls are looking pretty damn comfortable also this afternoon. So the Red Bulls are only slightly ahead of us in the performance chart, but I think that's enough for them maybe to look good. At the moment, though, the home favourite, Sebastian Vettel, now is on pole position or provisional pole as we go through the final few corners then of this first lap across the line, and it's P6, and that will eventually turn into P8 then as we fast forward through this session. But I'm not too worried about that initial first lap pace, because that set I started on was a scrub set from Q1. Remember, we burned 2 sets of Ultra Softs in Q1, leaving me with only one brand spanking new set to use in this top 10 shootout. So I went off on an old set for that first run. So now, even if I don't have a brilliant lap, in theory, with fresh tyres, I should go a lot faster anyway from P8. But at the moment, you can see already rectifying some issues, maybe going a little bit wide in that first sector. We go purple, actually, that was in that first sector. So let's see how this goes on. At the moment, losing a bit of time in the brake zone, but then getting it back then in the hairpin. But at the moment, although it was purple in the first sector, you can see on the bottom, on the top right there, it wasn't actually too much actual lap time gain there. So the first sector, very, very close stuff between all the cars in, it seems, in the top 10. And in sector 2, you can see losing a bit of time with a lockup. And really, we're only on the knife edge of gaining a lot of time here. Through the right-handed, though, I can go a little bit more aggressive than I did on that first run. Then a little bit wide, we managed to control it, and we do gain a decent amount of time here. So through the final sector then, where I've been a little bit poor and losing time a little bit here and there in that lockup phase on the left front tyres, we go through the second last corner to the last, then as the grandstand goes wild for the final part of qualifying across the line, and it's gonna be P5 in the end behind my teammate Kevin Magnussen. So all in all, I'm actually happy with that. I've nearly matched my teammate there, and so both of us close again. So unlike previous races where he's got pole and I'm down in P4 or 5, I can be happy with my position against my teammate. And really, as a team, we might be upset, because you can see there both Red Bull cars and Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari outdid us today. I don't know, maybe one of those circuits where our car just doesn't perform as well as has been the case in real life for Haas. You know, you have a few circuits here and there where the car just seemingly doesn't work as well. But from here, I mean, you never know what might happen, because it is going to be a wet race, it looks like. So, you know, there could be some drama. So let's just see what goes on. Let's hit the intro and go to the grid.
There's nowhere at all I'd rather be today than here at Hockenheim for the German Grand Prix. We have an incredibly competitive field this year, which means we should be in for a treat. And judging by the sea of people filling the grandstands, there's a fair-sized chunk of Germany that agrees with me. It's 2.8 miles around the Hockenheim ring then, and some fairly wet conditions to overcome on this 17-corner circuit. The long curved back straight leads into a tight hairpin for the best overtaking opportunity. But expect to see the cars running wide, as braking offline could prove very difficult indeed. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Let's talk briefly about Sebastian Vettel. Looks like they've got a tough race in store today, as grid penalties from changing power unit components has forced them further down the field.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. Young superstar Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Daniel Ricciardo slotting in alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have the engineer, Ocon, Sergio Perez, and Alonso, Van Dorn, Hülkenberg, Ericsson, and Valtteri Bottas. Vettel, they've taken a grid penalty. Leclerc, Kevin Magnussen, and Gasly, Hamilton, Stroll, Carlos Sainz, and Kimi Raikkonen. Hartley and Sergei Sirotkin rounds off the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Right, so with Kevin Magnussen and Vettel being handed a grid penalty then, and a lot of others actually in this race being handed penalties, we are now up into P3 with the Force Indias and the McLarens behind us then, the two Red Bulls ahead. But you can see that is the race strategy then. It's been running for most of this race, but you can see the kind of last third is dry. So I'm kind of personally hoping that dry period can come a little bit sooner than 1/3 left to go in the race. I'm not too confident about the pace in the Inters, but let's see how the start goes then. Maybe we can jump one of the Red Bull cars, maybe even both. They have a nightmare into turn 1, you never know. But from P3 then, elevated position, feeling a bit better about this race. So let's go then to 5 red lights to the German Grand Prix, round number 13 of Season 2 here in the F1 2018 career mode. 5 red lights are out and we're underway. They were on for quite an age there at the 5 red light mark, but we have a good start and getaway off the grids. But Ricciardo ultimately makes a move on Verstappen. We get a little bit wayward in turn 1, and look at the flying Force India. Best man Ocon then down the inside for the race lead on Max Verstappen as Perez now is down my inside. So the Force Indias, quite weirdly, are looking very strong in the wet periods with the downforce there to haggle the Red Bull car, as Verstappen and Ocon still neck and neck, two former rivals back in karting there. Apparently they fell out back in back in the younger days before they got to F1. Ocon down the inside of Verstappen for the race lead. Still they go on as we try and look at the back of Sergio Perez, but we are ultimately down to P5. And looking at behind us, the two McLarens go side by side of Van Dorn and Alonso. As look at that, Ocon tried his best, but ultimately Verstappen gets that up into P1, Ocon P2, Ricciardo P3, Perez P4 then, and Van Dorn so far has got the better of Fernando Alonso in these conditions. So interesting developments there as we move on now all the way to lap 4 then. 3 laps gone and the order has not changed. You can see the only thing that has changed is Verstappen has, waltzed away. I was going to use a swear word there as a technical term, but I won't. But Verstappen is away and gone in P1. Ocon now is effectively holding up Daniel Ricciardo in P2 there to P3, and we're trying to still look at the back of Perez. You can see, despite how close we're getting in the last sector, just unable to make a move quite yet. A little bit frustrating. Well, quite frustrating actually, because I feel like we have better pace than this to maybe go chase after Ricciardo, and ultimately we're going to have to wait till later on the Grand Prix maybe, as now Ricciardo fancies a move on Ocon. He's got the speed through turns 1. Can he find the momentum now into turns 2? The end of sector 1, very, very short sector in Formula 1 here in Hockenheim. He goes round the outside and he does it there. Ricciardo uses the downforce to good effect of that Red Bull car and is up the order, but the straight line speed may not be there, and Ocon might just come back as we go through the back straight then towards the hairpin, and here comes one flying Esteban Ocon round the outside. Remember, no DRS, just pure straight line speed there for the Force India car, but as hard as Ocon may try, I think Ricciardo is going to keep that P2 there on the traction. Ricciardo will get that, and so it will be a 1-2 now for the Red Bulls, but it's still a brilliant P3, P4 right now for the Force India car. On lap number 8, we're going to try and spoil that party here as Perez gone a little bit slow. I think he tried to overtake Ocon into turn 1. That's kind of slowed him down, so we're going to try and do a copycat move like Ricciardo did around the outside then, and we just about managed to find the traction, squeeze Perez out, and we're up into P4, and now maybe we can have a look at finally Esteban Ocon, the man who's been slowing the entire train down, but maybe not quite yet, because Perez there in the mirrors is still there. He's going to try it on the outside. We're going to be defending to the inside there, a little bit wide on the entry, but on the exit that will actually help us out, kind of squeeze Perez off there, and I'm hoping the two McLarens can try and attack him rather than Perez attacking me anymore, because I want to get in the back of Ocon quite desperately until we move on 1 lap later onto lap 9. We are right there trying to look after Ocon there. We're getting some time with the left-hander, and Perez still behind us though. You can see the proximity arrow popped up for a second there, so he's still keeping us honest, and two McLarens right on his tail. You can see quite a long train actually behind Ocon. You can see the gap that Ricciardo has now pulled is ridiculous. So these Force Indias may be doing quite well at the moment in this race, but they are actually holding a lot of us up here. You know, they might be able to keep us behind in a straight line, but in the corners they are still inferior, and so I'm trying to overtake Ocon here. We find the grip, we find the space down the inside. Ocon lifts off there to give us the room. Thank you very much, Ocon, and we're up into P3 then. So now can we get released and try and chase after the Red Bull cars? Maybe wishful thinking, is now Perez sends one down the inside and knocks Ocon wide, and so the McLarens might attack him. Van Dorn's through, Alonso might be through, and so Van Dorn is still the lead McLaren, interestingly enough, in this race. And so now Alonso's on the outside. He gets it. He gets the move done on Ocon, and so Ocon will have to now try and defend from the Renault and also one of the Ferrari cars. So I'm guessing that's Sebastian Vettel, but meanwhile up ahead is still Ricciardo in second place, so far ahead of myself, and then Verstappen is even further ahead in first place. So at the moment it's looking like a very dominant 1-2 for Red Bull, as now you've got the two McLarens fighting. Alonso around the outside, or trying to go around the outside of Van Dorn, but Van Dorn is actually doing a great job here at the moment around Hockenheim to defend from his more kind of senior and esteemed teammate there, Fernando Alonso. And so those two won't be helping each other out, to be honest, in this race. If they hold each other up any longer, maybe Ocon gets involved. But now second time lucky then for Alonso. As we go through the laps, you can see that the track is getting a little bit brighter, so the sun is coming out here as Alonso now sends it down the inside to finally make the move, I think, to get ahead of his teammate. But slowly but surely it's going to get towards the dry period. On lap 16 we are now, quite a few laps after we made that move. on Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez. It's now time for the dry tyres because the DRS is now enabled. That is always the time and the crossover period for the dry tyres. So the rain stopped a lot earlier than was indicated on the radar there. So like I said, I was kind of praying that this would be the case because I think we're going to have a lot more better pace on the dries than we are in these inters. So maybe there's a half chance to maybe catch these Red Bull cars. But to be fair, I've got to be honest, they're looking very, very dominant around here. Pretty much like we were around Austria with myself and Magnussen. They're pretty much looking like a similar kind of performance here around Hockenheim. But we come in then, we're going to go onto a set of medium tyres, and that should get us through to the end of the Grand Prix very comfortably indeed. You've got the two McLarens coming in, and look at that entire centre-B train of F1 cars here as we switch over to the mediums, and Van Dorn is holding us up here. The two McLarens have double stacked, and we've lost 5, 6, 7, 8, man, we've lost more time with so many cars also coming through, and that is a calamity. We've just been sabotaged, basically. We just got sabotaged by the McLarens. We got no-scoped in the pit lane by Van Dorn just parking up in front of us. If we had made that pit stop without Van Dorn being there, we would have got ahead of all that traffic. And so now, we are down to P8 in this race, and we're even further away now from the Red Bulls. Forget about trying to upset the 1-2. I think it's going to be now finishing off as a very, very dominant 1-2 for Red Bull. We have to try and get back into P3 minimum here at the moment. We've got so many cars now to pass, including the likes of Vettel now, who I think jumped us there, and my own teammate Magnussen, and also now, you can see here, Leclerc has overtaken me, because I'm struggling at the moment, because the track's still damp here, and so the grip is not quite there for the medium tyres, and so you can see there's the car kind of shimmies and shakes a little bit as we go through that right-hander, which is usually easily flat in the dry. You can see the track grip just isn't quite there, so I'm having to try and find it almost. We go round here, lap after lap, obviously the grip will go more and more, and so we're going to come back at Leclerc immediately in Sector 3, but it's still skating around a little bit, but that is so annoying. I know it's kind of like a game mechanic, obviously, that you have to double stack the cars. Obviously it's a clever decision by McLaren to come in with both their cars, because otherwise one of them, Van Dorn, being the second one, would have lost way too much time staying out on inters, but just so frustrating. So Van Dorn holds us up there, and that was bad enough because I lost about 6 seconds there, and then I lost even more time because I had to wait for about 5 cars to overtake me in the pit lane before I could get a safe release, and that wouldn't have happened if Van Dorn wasn't there anyway, so it's a double whammy. But there we go. I can't do much else. I'm not going to complain about it anymore. We need to now move on here from P9 and first of all overtake this Sauber Alfa Romeo of Leclerc there. I said that the wrong way around, but never mind. We go down the inside then of the Monegascan and into the hairpin. We're up into P8 once again, and we're now finally finding the grip maybe in these tyres. So we're lap 18. There's 34 laps here, so we've got a lot of laps to go, but I'm not too sure about the pace of the car. I don't know if it's quite enough to go all the way back into P3, because look at the mini-map where Vettel is, that red dot. That's such a big amount of time to gain here, whilst overtaking these cars. We now close up then to the German and his home race, Hülkenberg there in the Renault, and then once again, hello again, Esteban Ocon. We close up with ERS going on overtake mode, switch to the right from the left hand of the circuit. That's a nice sequence of overtakes then. There's a bit of carbon fibre flailed off there of Ocon there. I don't know if he kind of hit the back of me as I broke a little bit too early maybe for his liking. But we're now up into P6, and now we'll try and chase after Valtteri Bottas and move on to lap 21. We rapidly gain on the fin then. We're in high mixture. We've got DRS available now on this lap as well. We're in standard mixture, but with high ERS, we're catching Bottas anyway. He goes defensive to the next corner. Very surprised to see that, but we get on the wet curbing and go wide there, so probably should have stayed a little bit tighter maybe to Bottas on the right-hand side. We're going to have to try and overtake him now in a straight line. We'll bump it up into rich mix, go to overtake mode, DRS open, and we're going to waltz past Bottas. They're teasing him a little bit as we go to the left and then the right, and we are clean through very, very easily. It's always quite satisfying now, to overtake a Mercedes car like that, knowing the performance of that car last season, Season 1, and where they are now. That's just a very weird sight always, but, now we're in P5, and now we can try and see if we can do anything about chasing after Sebastian Vettel, and ahead of him, I believe, is Fernando Alonso, who gained obviously quite a lot there in the pit stop phases. Still Verstappen leading the way from Daniel Ricciardo in second place, so it's looking more and more likely for a very strong 1-2 dominant win for the Red Bull team. But then Alonso, there he is in third place, the wily old fox, always there, at the right time to try and pull the car up the grid, even with the post-patch kind of nerf with the McLaren. Alonso still doing the job on the podium there. Vettel, the home man, tries to chase him down. We'll see if it's going to be Ferrari v McLaren at the end of this race, but quite some way behind him, and then us in P5 just ahead of Valtteri Bottas at the moment after overtaking him, and then after him is the Force India car. But now we move on to quickly look at our teammate Magnussen. So he's actually a little bit further down the way, and he's only now just overtaking Leclerc. So we overtook Leclerc obviously a lot earlier in this race, and only now is Magnussen getting past him. So after that penalty, Vettel's really gained a lot there from that penalty he had, but Magnussen's still struggling in this race for low-end points, I think that will be. So now as we move on then to that 22, and to be fair to Bottas, for what I said about the Mercedes car not having performance, I think it might have been a case of, I think Bottas was on low ERS mode, because you saw there on the previous lap in Sector 3 I was on low trying to save the battery, because I'm trying to, you know, use the battery power on the main straight to try and catch Vettel if I can. But here at the moment Bottas is pressurizing me, and so much so that we now lock up on the front right tyre. An easy mistake to make on that corner because it's so off camber, and Bottas does get us, and you can see having to fight the car in the exit of the corner there and try and rush on the back of Bottas. So we've got a bit more of a fight then with Valtteri than I thought we were going to get. We're going to move to the inside there. Bottas does squeeze us to the inside in the brake zone. Bottas just has it around the outside. We tap tyres there as we have a bit of understeer on the entry of the hairpin. We get the traction though, crucially on the Mercedes car, but then he pulls back through and he's giving us a real good fight. So I think Valtteri was definitely saving ERS modes when I overtook him before, because now he's looking so much faster. So I think he's matching us for the ERS deployment here, and maybe also for the first time using some rich mix in this dry stint, because he's giving us a real good fight here, and unable to overtake him just ahead of the Mercedes grandstand there. We're going to have to wait until this stadium section to maybe make a pop down the inside, but no, he just does a good enough job, places the car enough there in the middle of the track where if I did stick my nose in on that left-hander, I definitely would have been spun out there by him. So as we go through the last corner now, trying to catch back up with DRS, going a little bit wide though, getting hit with a big amount of dirty air. And so the Fiat is doing a great job actually after overtaking me to defend this position. But through the first turn, we're so strong through there. DRS open there. Here we go. Flick to the right. High ERS mode. And we just about managed to squeeze through in what is a very narrow part of the track. We're going to push Bottas wide on purpose there and get the elbows out. And we're up into P5 once again. And Ocon is now actually on the back of us. Ocon's overtaking Bottas. And he's come out of nowhere. Where on earth is Esteban Ocon come out of? He's now overtaken us. And now we have to try and re-overtake another car that we had already passed in this Grand Prix. Round the outside we go, big dive, hasn't worked out. Gonna have to switch back and straight up the car faster, and ultimately Ocon is gonna get away from us here, and we're gonna have to wait all the way up until lap 29 then to try and close back up to Ocon with DRS, and just like we did with Bottas, try and close them up in this first sector where we've been so strong. Ocon once again will defend to the inside then, and we'll just try and be a bit patient this time around. Won't try it around the outside, and we'll wait until we go through to the exit of the left-hander and then open DRS. Rich mix going high ERS, and this will be now a bit more of a simple move on Ocon to get back up into P5. But with all this fighting then, Vettel really benefits, and he's going to get away and away in P4. And so I think more likely is the order going to be Verstappen, Ricciardo, Alonso, Vettel, and then us in P5. As I look behind us, hopefully try and waltz away from Ocon with only about 5 laps to go now. We're actually quite late into the Grand Prix, and Ocon is still having a go at me, but hopefully now I can get away finally and try and close out this P5, which is going to be a little bit annoying because we were definitely on for a comfortable P3 minimum, if it wasn't for that sabotage from the McLaren guys. To maybe get Alonso up into P3 and Van Dorn holding me up. And then meanwhile we got Raikkonen eventually fighting Ocon then, so that helps us out walk away from Ocon. But Ocon, to be fair to him, in that Force India car is going to have the pace to pull around the outside of the Iceman then and keep that position ahead of Kimi. So fair play to the Frenchman and Force India for being able to stay ahead of the Ferrari car. But there you have it on the last lap of the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen does win the German Grand Prix. Ricciardo will grab the fastest lap of the Grand Prix though to make it a really dominant 1-2 for Red Bull. Alonso P3, Vettel P4. We're going to go home in P5. Yeah, a little bit peeved off to be honest about this P5. We could have got a lot better in this race, a lot better, at least minimum the podium like I said. So we come through the final few turns and we'll take it. I mean, we're going to beat Magnussen like we had at Silverstone. Obviously maybe not the position we wanted, but we do beat our main championship rival, which is my teammate of course, and so can't be too upset.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
A great win then for the Red Bull team today. Tell me, Ant, what was the key to this success?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
And I can see now the drivers are making their way out. We need Red Bull fighting at the front. They do an incredible amount for Formula One, and that's another winner's trophy heading back to Milton Keynes.
So a very strong day for the Red Bull team, very, very surprised, but like I said, almost kind of like what we had at Austria with Haas, myself and Magnussen dominating that one, so kind of, you know, it swings here and there. F1's always a momentum kind of season. You have a few little really up moments and some down ones, so this time down, obviously we have some work to do. We have the ultimate turbo upgrade coming in next episode then, hopefully, when we fix it, so... You know, I think it's time maybe, yeah, we would do some development to try and punch back at Red Bull, because Red Bull have been on our heels for the last couple of episodes when it comes to the R&D chart and where that looks on paper. But you can still see here, it's still a 1-2 in the championship. We're looking still strong as ever. We get more points on Magnussen after beating him today and him getting low points. And so the constructors-wise as well, we're still looking good ahead of Ferrari. But, you know, for us as a driver, we're looking really, really good against Magnussen. But Red Bull's performance there brings them ahead of McLaren then, back up into 4th place of the championship. So McLaren will be a bit annoyed by that. To be honest, I'm annoyed by seeing that, because McLaren were doing quite well before. But I think it's only a matter of time before both Red Bull and McLaren start catching Mercedes at the rate of how badly they've been doing this season so far. Especially in the last couple of episodes, they've been really, really quite poor as they slip below McLaren and Force India in the kind of development race. But we're going to move then into the interview. Won't be probably a very nice one to do.
Great work out there today. How do you think it went? That was an epic battle today. How do you think this will play out?
Yeah, literally with a lot of these questions, I'm just going to go with no comment. A lot of these questions are trying to pry a little bit.
Do you think you were lucky not to end your race with that crash?
But really, none of these questions are of interest to me in terms of they don't really relate to me after this race.
Thanks anyway.
So Claire may be pissed off, but, you know, Claire, ask some better questions next time. That really didn't relate to anything I wanted to talk about really after that race. So in the teammate rivalry then, in this new rivalry, technically Magnussen's still beating me then in this rivalry, actually. We're 2 for 2, but I guess he beat me in qualifying, of course. And then Vettel, we're still actually beating him just about. Obviously, he gets a bit of a better showing after finishing ahead of me in this race, but still all's good. I think we should be fine to eventually beat Sebastian in that little rivalry there. And so, like I mentioned, obviously, at the end of this episode, we didn't actually have enough R&D points to buy or rebuy the ultimate upgrade at the very start of the episode. Now we do, so we'll repurchase that update, so that will now come in for the next episode, the Hungarian Grand Prix. And so hopefully maybe that's, you can see there what a big leap that is on the chassis front, because Red Bull are actually back ahead as the best chassis on the grid, because we actually slipped behind them. So it'll be nice to get back into that top frame of the chassis, and hopefully that'll be maybe the update we need to try and fight back at the Red Bulls, who are looking stronger than ever in the last few episodes. But guys, if you did enjoy that episode nonetheless, then hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, you can subscribe for weekly Formula content. I've been Ava, home today, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.